Hello everyone, myself Saili Ghadge, Assistant Professor from Vishwabhushan Bharat Ratna Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar College, Ambadave, Mandangad. University of Mumbai's Vijaya Lakshmi Vishwanath Dalvi College and University of Mumbai's Vishwabhushan Bharat Ratna Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar College in association with Dombivli Shikshan Prasarak Mandal's KV Pendharkar College. All these three colleges organized online lecture series for all third year students from Konkan region, and I am going to be part of this series. I am going to conduct a lecture for TYBSc IT students for the subject Enterprise Java, and my topic is Hibernate. This topic Hibernate belongs to Unit 5. Before we begin with Hibernate, let us first see what is meant by an enterprise application. All of you know enterprise means an organization. Okay, sometimes a single organization may consist of two or more small organizations. So basically, when we talk about enterprise application, it is a business application. So basically, it is used for developing softwares for businesses. In today's corporate environment, enterprise applications are very complex, scalable, distributed, component based, and mission critical. Complex because there are multiple platforms across corporate networks. There are various intranets, internet, and because of that, enterprise applications are very complex. Suppose let us take one example. Suppose there is one organization who develops the software for Aadhaar cards. Okay, nowadays Aadhaar card is needed for every documentation in every bank. When we go to open an account, that account needs that account needs some documents, and one of them is a Aadhaar card. So bank will automatically fetch the data from the Aadhaar software and will get the required information. So there are lots of banks in today's world, like suppose there is ICICI Bank, Bank of Baroda. All these banks will interact, means the softwares of these banks will interact with the software of the Aadhaar card. That means this is one type of a distributed application, and maybe every bank is using different software, different database. The Aadhaar card software must interact with all these bank software which having different databases. So for such type of scenarios, we need to have a framework which will collaborate with all these types of software. Okay, so Hibernate is one of them. We can use Hibernate as a framework. Basically, framework means what? It is a structure into which or it is a skeleton into which we can put different types of application, different types of components. Okay, so in this way Hibernate is used in an applications where there are different types of databases, and we want to interact with different types of databases. So Hibernate is basically used to support such complex distributed applications. It can support different databases, so we can say it is a database independent framework. So we are going to learn it. First at all, let us see what is Hibernate. So basically Hibernate is a open source software. It is a open source persistent technology. So as all of you know, open source software is the software which we can easily or freely download from the internet, and we can easily get the access of source code of that software. So Hibernate is one such type of software which we can easily download from the internet, and we can access its source code as well. It has a free open source ORM library. ORM means object relational mapping library. Okay, so basically Hibernate is a framework which is used for ORM mapping. In this ORM mapping, we can map Java classes into database tables, as well as we can map Java data types into SQL data types. That means it is very easy that we can store all the data from Java classes into a database tables, as well as we can convert easily Java data types into SQL data types. So such a type of mapping can be possible with the help of ORM, that is object relational mapping, and Hibernate is one such a framework which provides this type of mapping. So basically Hibernate is the one which provides ORM model. Let us see how it works. First of all, let us see various Java ORM frameworks that are available today. The first one is Enterprise Java Beans Entity Beans. Okay, or we can say it as EJB Entity Beans. Then Java Data Objects are there, Castor, Toplink, Spring DAO, and Hibernate. So there are various frameworks available today which supports ORM, that is Object Relational Mapping. Now let us see how ORM mapping works. Suppose here you can see one Java application, or we can say one object is there, emp e is equal to new emp. So here e is the object of emp class, and what we want to do here, we want to store the data of this object into the database. Suppose our emp class has variables like emp number, emp name, and salary. Okay, so all the data of that e object that we are going to store into a database table which has similar columns. Means the first column is emp number, second one is emp name, and third one is the salary. So we are going to store the data from variables of Java object into a columns of database table. Okay, so such type of mapping can be possible by using Hibernate. Basically Hibernate is developed by Gavin King. Its first version is Hibernate 1.0, which was released in 2001. Then after that in 2005 user version was released, that is Hibernate 3.x version. 3.x means it may be 3.0, 3.1, 3.2 like this. Okay, then after that in 2011 Hibernate 4.x version was released. Then now the latest version is Hibernate 5.x. Okay, so the initial version of Hibernate 5.x was released in 2017, and till now we are using Hibernate version 5.x. Okay, so there are many versions like 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 are available today, and also the updates of these versions are also available. So let us see why we are using Hibernate if we already have a JDBC. As you all of you know, JDBC means Java Database Connectivity. So basically when we are going to use any database in our Java application, then we need a Java database connectivity. So we already know there are 5 steps in Java database connectivity. First step is very simple, that is to load and register a database driver. Then second step is to retrieve connection object, and for that we need a JDBC URL. That means in the second step we are actually creating connection object. Then in the third state we need to create a statement object. There are 3 types of statement objects. First is statement, second is prepared statement, and third is callable statement. So we can use any one of them to create a statement object. Then after that in the fourth step we need to execute Java query or Java SQL statement. Okay, so in the fourth step we are going to execute the query and retrieve the result set, and in the fifth step we need to close the connection as well as other result set or statement objects. So These are the basic steps which we need to follow in JDBC. So whenever we are following these steps in JDBC, in that steps we need to write JDBC queries. Suppose we are using MySQL database, then we need to write MySQL query. That means the database specific query we need to write into our Java application. If we are using Oracle database, then we need to write query by using Oracle syntax. Okay, so query database specific query we need to write into our Java application. Okay, so the first reason is that query is a DBMS specific in JDBC, whereas in Hibernate we do not have to write a query which is a database specific. Okay, then second thing, need a database independent architecture. Okay, so when Hibernate was invented, it is invented as a database independent architecture. Means we do not stick to specific database. We do not how to use only specific databases while writing Java application. Means we can write Java application in a such a way that it can be used for any type of databases. It may be MySQL, Oracle, NoSQL. So any type of database we can use with our Java application. Then third is the HQL, that is Hibernate query language. So instead of using database specific query syntax, we can use Hibernate query language, which is supporting all databases. That means we do not stick to specific database and specific database syntax for queries. Okay, so instead of that we can use Hibernate query language. So these are the various reasons by which we are using Hibernate instead of JDBC. Here is one simple application I have written. Suppose we have one Java application, and in that Java application we have written Java code, and in that Java code here it is written MySQL query. That means the database that we are going to use at the backend is the MySQL database. That's why we need to write MySQL query in Java code. Okay, so for that JDBC connection we are using, and we are accessing MySQL database. That means a database specific query is we are using in this Java application. Suppose we are going to switch from MySQL database to some other database like NoSQL. So instead of using MySQL, if we want to NoSQL database, then we need to change our Java application syntax. Okay, so instead of using MySQL syntax for query, we need to use NoSQL syntaxes for query. Okay, so this is the reason this is the reason we are using Hibernate query language instead of using database specific query languages. Okay, then next point is technology to provide simplified data persistence. Okay, so Hibernate is the simplest technology by using which we can store data permanently into the database. Okay, so data persistence is nothing but storing the database permanently into the database. Okay, so with the help of this data persistence we can perform different persistent operations like insert, update, delete, create. Okay, that means we can insert the data into the database, we can permanently update the database into the database. Also we can permanently delete the data from the database. So whatever the different operations that we are going to perform on the database are permanent. Okay, that means the changes are saved permanently in the database. Saving data to storage medium is called a persistence. So this is the simplest definition of persistence. Saving data to storage medium. The storage medium may be your hard disk, your pen drive, whatever. So we are going to store data permanently into this storage medium. Okay, so basically we are using databases or the file is a database file into which we are going to save our data. Now here is one application given, that is Hibernate application. I just try to give the overall picture of how Hibernate works. Okay, so for that, suppose we have one Java application here. At the left side you can see Java application, and in that Java application you can see one class is written, class employee, uh, and three variables are there: int, eno, string name, float, sal. And there are some get set methods also. Set triple x means set eno, set name, set sal. So for these three variables you can we can write three set methods, and for these three variables also we can write three get methods. So this is one Java application. Now suppose we need to store the data of this employee class into a employee table. Here is the table emp detail. Okay, so emp detail table has three columns. First column is eno, then ename, and third one is esal. Okay, suppose we have created here one object of this Java application. Suppose object is employee e is equal to new employee empty bracket semicolon, then save into bracket e semicolon. So here you can see the e object, and suppose we have stored some data for the variables of this object. Suppose this is the e variable, and e object, and for that e object the first variable is eno. Suppose this eno variable has value 101, then name is equal to abc, and salary is equal to 1,20,000. So this data is stored into object e. Okay, now we want to store this object's data into the database. Here you can see the value of the eno variable 101 is stored into the table eno. Here you can see the value 101. Similarly, the value of the name variable abc is stored into the column ename, and then next sal, whatever the value of the sal is stored into the esal column. Okay, so this storing of data from an object into a table can be done with the help of this Hibernate mapping file. So basically Hibernate mapping file is a XML file. So here you can see the syntax is not perfectly written here. I just try to show you how the mapping occurs. So here is suppose one employee class, and that employee class mapped to employee detail table, emp detail table. Okay, so the first variable of class eno is mapped to the first column of the table eno. Then second variable of the class in name is mapped to ename column of the table, and sal variable of class is mapped to esal column of the table. So such type of mapping we need to write into a Hibernate mapping file. So with the help of this file, Hibernate can store the data from an Java object into a database table. Okay, also we need one more file, that is Hibernate configuration file. This file is again XML file. So in this Hibernate configuration file we need to write write some details of the database that we are going to use into our application. For example, we need to write the driver. For example, if we are using MySQL database, then driver is com.jdbc.mysql.driver. Then URL for that driver is jdbc colon mysql colon, then localhost is there dot dot, like this means if the full URL we need to write, then it is jdbc colon mysql colon / localhost colon 3306. 3306 is the port number, and after that slash and database name. We need to write the database name that we have already created into MySQL. and after that we need to write username and password. Here suppose username is system and password is root. Okay, so such type of configuration details we need to write into Hibernate configuration file, which is a XML file. Okay, so all these types of file we need to create in order to develop Hibernate application. Now here is the statement employee E is equal to new employee. This statement we need to write into client class. Okay, because we are going to access the Java application class employee, and in order to access the employee class we need to create the object of that class. Okay, so whatever the data populated into that object, that data is suppose entered by the user, so always objects are created at the client side. So here you can see this object E is created into a client class. Okay, so client is the one which is responsible for populating object Java objects, and then from that object data is stored into the database table. Okay, and in order to store a data from an object into a table we need to write this Hibernate mapping file. Okay, so basically object relational mapping is done with the help of this mapping file. Then next we are going to see the point why Hibernate. Okay, so why we need to use Hibernate. First reason is that it is free under LGPL. LGPL means Lesser GNU Public License. That means we can easily download Hibernate from the internet, and it is a open source software. That again it is easy to develop and distribute the application, and it is also free. We can distribute our developed application to another third party, and again it is free. Distribution is again free. Then next is eliminates repetitive SQL. That is, we do not need to write database specific SQL statements. Instead we can use the better option, that is HQL, that is Hibernate query language. Then next, working with objects and classes instead of queries and result sets. Okay, so in Hibernate application, instead of directly using objects and classes, uh, instead of directly using queries and result set, that means instead of directly using database specific operations like handling queries, handling result sets, we can directly handle the Java objects. That means we do not require to write specific syntax for queries and result sets. Instead we can easily use objects. Then next, handles all CRUD operations. CRUD means create, update, delete, drop. Such type of operations all can be handled with the help of Hibernate. Then portability across databases. That means once suppose we develop one application using specific suppose MySQL database. Okay, then we can switch that application to another database like NoSQL, Oracle. Okay, so it will easily it can be easily ported from one database to another database. It supports various IDEs by using plugins. So Hibernate can be used in IDEs like Eclipse, NetBeans, and for Hibernate you can also download plugins for extra support. Then it reduces development time by supporting OOP concepts. Okay, so we can easily use all the OOP concepts like inheritance, polymorphism, data hiding. All these concepts are easily supported in Hibernate. Okay, because of that we can reduce our development time. Then it can support connection pooling. Connection pooling means in a pool we can create multiple instances of the Hibernate. Means once we develop an Hibernate application, we can develop multiple copies of that application, and whatever the client requests are received to that Hibernate can be easily accommodated by all these pooled instances of Hibernate. Then another one more reason for using Hibernate is that it can support wide range of databases. Okay, so there are various databases that are supported by Hibernate, like Oracle, DB2, Sybase, MySQL, SAPDB, PostgreSQL, Frontbase, Microsoft SQL Server, Informix, Dynamic Server, and so on. The list is very lengthy. I have not included all the names. Okay, so Hibernate actually supports a very wide range of databases. Next point that we are going to see how the Hibernate database and the application interact. Okay, so you can see at the top there are some application. The first is JSP, that is Java Server Pages. Then next is servlets. Okay, servlets are also server side components. Then swing basically used for GUI applications. Okay, so all these are GUI applications, JSP, servlets, and swing. So whatever the application that are developed with these JSP, servlets, or swing packages or applications, they interact with Java beans. Okay, so Java beans may be POJO objects or DAO objects. POJO means plain old Java objects, and data access objects. DAO is data access objects. So if we develop one application into JSP, then that application can interact with Java bean, and after that Java bean objects can directly interact with Hibernate. Okay, so under Hibernate there is a hibernate.properties file or hibernate.cfg.xml file. So this is basically a Hibernate configuration file. Okay, and here is the XML mapping document. This XML document mapping document is the one which does the mapping of Java objects into a database column. Okay, and here is the JDBC API. So we need to use JDBC API in order to access the database. Okay, suppose we have created one application in JSP. There is one HTML form. In that form we are entering the data like employee number, employee name, salary. Okay, so after that, when user enter the data, that data is stored by JSP into a Java Bean object. Okay, so Java Bean basically are the simple classes. Suppose as we have already seen, there is one class employee, and there are three variables: int employee number, then string name, and int salary. Okay, so whatever the data which are entered by the user into a HTML form, that data is fetched from the that input fields and stored into these three variables which belongs to class employee. Okay, so this file, suppose file name is employee.java. This employee.java file is the Java Bean file, we can say, and from that Java Bean file the data is stored into a database table, and in order to store the data from that Java Bean file, we need to use hibernate.properties file or hibernate.cfg.xml file. So hibernate.cfg.xml file is the configuration file which will store all the details of database, like database driver, database URL, then its username, password. Okay, so all these details of the database drivers are stored into hibernate.cfg.xml file, that is the configuration file. And here is the XML mapping file. This mapping file is the one which does the actual mapping from the variable of Java application to the column of the database table. For example, If the variable name in the class employee is employee number or e number, eno, then that variable is mapped to the first column in the database table. Suppose the first column name is employee number. Okay, so in this way all the mapping related configuration we can write into this XML mapping document. Okay, and JDBC API we require to access the database. So in JDBC API we can use two packages. First is java.sql package and second is javax.sql package. Okay, then next we are going to see the next point, that is the components of Hibernate. Okay, so basically Hibernate consists of three components. The first component is connection management. Okay, so all the tasks that are relevant to database connection are done under this component. The first one, connection management. Okay, so this service provides efficient management of database connection. At a time multiple clients are going to access the database, and for that all the clients different connections are needed, and all these connections are maintained and managed by this connection management service. Database connection is the most expensive portion of an application that allow interacting with the database. So why it is most expensive portion? Because database connection, when we made with any database, then it will acquire some resources, it will reserve some resources of the server or database server we can say. And because of that, if there are hundreds of connections to the database, then hundreds of different resources are acquired by that different database connections, and so it becomes very uh, tedious task for the server to maintain all these connections, and also to maintain also to preserve preserve the resources of the database server. We need to manage the database connections. Actually Hibernate is managing all these tasks of connections in order to make it very easy for the database server to interact with the client request. Okay, so most of the expensive part of database server is done by actually Hibernate. So this is the most expensive operation which is actually done by Hibernate, which decreases the load of the database server. Then second important component of Hibernate is the transaction management. So this service is the one which provides the ability to execute more than one database statements at a time. Okay, so if there are number of connections and under every connection there are number of statements to be executed, then it consumes a lot of time of the database server. So all such type of transactions are again managed by Hibernate. So Hibernate internally managed the execution of multiple database statements at a time. Then next third component of Hibernate is object relational mapping. So we have discussed lots of things about object relational mapping. So basically it is a technique of mapping the data representation from an object model to a relational data model. So whatever the data that we have stored into an object in the form of various class variables, that data can be easily moved from Java object into a database table. Okay, so basically relational data model means a database table, and object model is a Java object. So we are actually mapping data from Java object into a database table. Okay, so this mapping is very easy with the help of this third component of Hibernate. Then it is used for CRUD operations on underlying database tables. So we can use any type of database like MySQL, Oracle, NoSQL. So we can perform all the create, update, delete, drop, such type of operations on underlying database. So for that we do not need to stick to specific data type. We can use any type of database, and under that database we can perform various operation. Then next, populated POJO object is passed to session.save method, and then Hibernate reads the state of the variables of that object and executes the necessary SQL query. Okay, so POJO object is plain old Java object. So basically populated means already some data is there into that object, some values of the variables are there in the object. So such type of populated POJO object is passed to session.save method. Okay, so all the data of that session is saved, and then such type of populated POJO object is read by the Hibernate, and then it will execute the necessary SQL statements. Okay, so basically Hibernate read the state of the variables of that object. So whatever the values of the variables are saved, that values are read by Hibernate, and then the SQL query is executed. So after execution of SQL query, the data goes to automatically database table. So these are the various things that comes under object relational mapping. So what we have seen about Hibernate today. First thing, what is Hibernate? Basically it is a open source software which is released under GNU public license, and it is of course free and open source software. Second thing, why we need Hibernate? There are various reasons given. Because of that reasons we are using Hibernate instead of we are using our traditional JDBC database connectivity. It is very convenient to use Hibernate because it is independent of the database. Okay, and third thing that we have learned today is how to interact with actual how to interact with database. So in order to interact with database for any Java application, we need first thing is the Hibernate mapping file, and second thing is the Hibernate configuration file. So these two files are very important in order to interact with the database, because with the help of mapping file we can store the data from Java object into a database table. Okay, so then we have seen one diagram which actually shows how the front end application and back end database interact with each other with the help of Hibernate. Okay, so there are front end technologies like JSP, servlets, and Swing component, and all these front end technologies interact with some Java Bean classes, and after that Java Bean actually interact with the Hibernate, and then with the help of Hibernate we can access the database. But in order to access the database, again we need a JDBC API. So all these things we have learned today. So then we have seen the various components of Hibernate. The first component is connection management, then transaction management, and then object relational mapping. So that's it for today. In the next part of Hibernate, you can learn the architecture of Hibernate. Basically, the architecture of Hibernate consists of session factory object, a configuration object, a session object, then transaction object, query object, criteria objects. So the architecture basically consists of these six types of object, and how these six type of objects are dependent on one another, and how they are interact with each other, so that we can access the database. So then in the next part you can learn how Hibernate application can be developed. There are some Hibernate jar files that you need to download and you need to add into a library files, and after that only you can execute the Hibernate application. So this is the rest part of this chapter. Okay, so for your TY syllabus only the introductory part of Hibernate is given, and one or two applications are given only. Okay, most of the details of Hibernate are not provided. Just only the simplest connectivity is shown, and for that you need to first remember the Hibernate architecture, and then only you can write your own Hibernate application. Okay, so there are few steps by using which you can develop your Hibernate application. So that's it for today. Just whatever the points we have learned today, just try to remember it and try to understand it. Thank you. Thank you.